8:02 a.m. on 8/2/22. I'd like to call to order the Westborough Economic Development Committee meeting. Before we get started with our, I guess we have some votes to approve minutes. We have some new members, so let's do a quick little introduction. We can go around and give a quick background on each of ourselves and take it from there and then get started. So I'll start. I'm Todd Alexander. I've been the chairman of the EDC for the past year. Been on the EDC for probably 4 or 5 years, but was an ambassador for about 6 years before that. So I am a local commercial real estate broker, work for Kelleher and Sadowski, and own some commercial properties here in town as well.
Hi, Dave Bagdon. I publish the Community Advocate newspaper, and I'm very active on the Corridor 9 Chamber Board. I own some property downtown and feel very connected to the business community here in Westborough, and this is my first meeting, so I'm looking forward to helping contribute.
Good morning. My name is Mark Zeff. I'm the owner of the Duke Art and Antique in downtown Westborough, also a property owner, as well as have 2 children in the Westborough school system. Have been a member of the EDC now. I'm starting my 2nd year.
Good morning. I'm Sandra Kearney. I'm the owner of Human Power Solutions. We do corporate training and development, and I have 2 grandchildren who are in the school system. I'm also very active in the Corridor 9 Chamber of Commerce on the board and the chair of the Ambassador Committee for the Chamber. I'm also the current president of the Westborough Rotary Club here in town. So very vested in town and looking forward to being involved.
I'm Jim Robbins, town planner. I've been a member of the EDC since its inception.
Zach.
Oh, and I'm Zach Banner, the Economic Development Coordinator.
Fred Leonardo, Kim Simeone, Community Development Director, Building Commissioner, and Zoning Enforcement. I've been on the board since I joined the Westborough almost 5 years ago.
Sean Keogh. I am the Select Board Representative to the EDC.
Scott Rayleigh. I represent one of the larger businesses in Westborough and very active in the community.
Great. Well, welcome new members. We're excited to have you and look forward to the upcoming year. So with that, let's get started on, do I hear a motion to approve minutes for June 7th and July 12th?
So moved.
Motion to approve the minutes for July.
Dave, yeah. So do you want to second it?
Second.
All right, great. Any comments, questions, concerns? All in favor?
I think we need to do a roll call.
We are going to have to do a roll call. That's a good point.
Mark didn't introduce himself.
Oh yeah, Mark. Well, we'll go to that after we do this roll call. So, Alex? Just state your last name. We'll go around. Alexander, yes.
Bagdon, yes.
Zeff, yes.
Kearney, yes.
Robbins, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Keogh, yes.
Rayleigh, yes.
Mark?
Perot, yes.
All right, great. That has passed. And Mark, my apologies. I forgot you were online there. And if you want to do a quick introduction, that would be great.
Sure. I'm Mark Perot. I work for Peru Capital, National Fellowship for 2 years. In Westborough, I've worked for Peru for 30 years, and I've been working in Westborough, developing residential commercial properties for 35 years.
It's pretty tough to hear you. I don't know if it's just me or if it's.
Yeah, no, I couldn't hear
it. Yeah, I don't know if it's something on your end or something with on our end here, but it was a little difficult to hear there, Mark. But Mark's with Carew Capital. He's been there forever. I've known him many years. I actually used to work for him years ago. So good guy. Great to have him on board here. Next on the agenda, we have the EDC leadership nominations and elections. Zach.
Great. So I can give a little bit of an overview about the process, with the major caveat that I've only been through one of these elections. So, and at the end of the day, this is your board. You can sort of decide who you want to lead you as you please. But typically, I think there should be some discussion about, what qualities you're looking for in a chair and vice chair. If anyone has any questions about what the roles are like, we can, do our best to answer those, specifically those who have experience in both roles, like Todd. You would put forth like a nominee, so you could motion to nominate somebody for either role, and then when you all are ready, after discussion, you can motion to vote for somebody to become the chair or the vice chair for the next fiscal year, and that term would last from this meeting to our June meeting, or through our June meeting. Any questions or concerns?
Okay.
I would nominate Todd Alexander for chair.
I'd second that. I'd add Todd's done a great job. He's got a vast amount of experience with the board, so if he's willing to do it, I think he's done a great job in the past year as president
Yeah,
or chair.
Yeah, and I agree completely. I think a lot of us are new or newer to this committee, so I think Todd's experience has been invaluable. He's only had the role for a single year so far, so I think it makes sense to do a second year.
Well,
I don't know you, Todd, so.
you could recuse yourself.
Well, I certainly speak in favor of Todd. He's been a kind of a pillar of the real estate community, the business community for many years. I've known him for decades at this point.
Thank you. All right, that's enough. But, any other nominations? Or any other chair? No? All right, then I'll let you guys vote.
I'll start the roll call vote. Keough, yes.
Whaley, yes.
Bagden, yes?
Zeff, yes.
Kearney, yes.
Robbins, yes.
Williams, yes.
Leonardo, yes. Mark?
Mark?
Mark, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you all. Okay, so carrying on here, or continuing on, Vice Chair. Any comments, discussions, or nominations? I'll make a nomination. I'd like to nominate Mark Zeff as Vice Chair. I think Mark's done a great job this past year, and he's well-known in the community, and he was instrumental in helping us get the award ceremony done this past year, and among other things. So I think he'd be great as Vice Chair.
You guys happy to try it?
I will second that.
Any comments, discussion? All right, I'll start. Alexander, yes?
Bagden, yes?
Kearney, yes.
Robbins, yes.
Williams, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Keough, yes.
Whaley, yes.
Mark? We
Sounded
couldn't
like
hear
you
you. I
said
think you're
yes.
on
Looked like it looked like a yes.
Look, yeah.
We read your lips.
Give us a thumbs up. All right, great.
Technical issues.
Awesome. Look
Thanks,
forward
guys.
to working with you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Great.
We'll just sit down, Zach, and give me a rundown of anything else I'm unaware of that comes with.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
All right, so on to the EDC grants. First up on the agenda is a crystal mine. Jamie Sens, I believe, is
Joining
online,
remotely.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. Jamie,
I'm
will you-
here.
go ahead.
Oh, there we go.
I was gonna say I'm here, but I'm not sure if, I guess maybe you can hear me.
Yep. Welcome.
All right, perfect.
Thank you for
Thank
joining
you,
us.
thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your project, well, about what you're going to be doing, your business, and then your project, and what you're looking to use the funds for specifically.
Yeah, so we've been open for 3 months now. It's really exciting. I've gone into the crystal business to bring a lot of earth beauty and healing to the community. It's relatively new, the idea of crystals for some people, and very long-standing for many others. And my goal here is to sort of create a larger community of positivity, living with positive energy, directing ourselves, and finding our own strengths. And in the meanwhile, in our space, we're looking to grow. We've got a huge space where in the old Landry's bike shop. So if you can imagine, we've renovated a space that used to sell and work on bikes into a place that sells little rocks, and maybe some big rocks, but not huge. We currently already have 12 local artists selling their product in our space. So we're opening it up so people who have a love for art, a love to create, who might not be able to do it as a job and make money because they have to do the daily, life routine that we do to survive. So I can give people an outlet to bring their hobby to the forefront and be seen by the community. So we're really excited to already have 12 people there, only one of
Jamie,
which
are you
I
going to be
knew
doing any
before.
educational workshops or things like that to educate the community? What's your plan for that?
So we have a space that seats. We've had two events already that seat up to 30 people. We're hoping to bring people in who might want to. So myself, at this moment, I'm not going to run any classes, but anybody who has something to share, we have a space that we can run classes. We can run events. We've had a psychic medium come. We have another one coming in August. We've done a guided meditation. So even if it's just jewelry making or learning about crystals and why we're here or what we're doing. So those are in our future plans. It's in the overall goal, but at this moment it's sort of whoever comes in that we connect with and connect with us and have something that they want to add and bring to the community.
Thank you.
Jamie, what's your ratio of retail that you run yourself versus vendors that you might bring in?
So right now, I would say that it is predominantly the retail portion because we dominate such a large space of it. But this past month, I would say maybe, if I'm just trying to grab out of my head, 5 to 10% went back to vendors.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And we've only been open 3 months, so people are still, just finding us.
And what's the approximate square footage that you're working in?
I think we're just about 5,000 square feet, maybe a little over.
And I believe this is the old, or the former Landry's Bicycles
Yes.
location for folks' reference.
Sure is.
And what's your plan for community involvement?
Bringing in local artists, bringing in anyone from the community who wants to host a class, educate people about anything maybe spiritual or growth-oriented, healing. I'm doing birth chart readings, so I just read my first birth chart for money a couple days ago, and they were extremely, because I was afraid to do that for money because I've always just been able to do it for friends and family, and it's gotten great feedback. So people who might want to read numerology or tarot cards, people who are looking for some maybe deeper spiritual guidance that this community can bring. And so my goal is to drive it through energy and self-building and awakening.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions for Jamie? No? All right, thank you for your presentation. We'll
Great, thank you all.
move on.
I hope you come down and visit.
Thank you,
Thank
definitely
you.
will.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the EDC grant application for Lindsay Taylor Spatik.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Lindsay. I am half of Lindsay Taylor Spatik. The other half is Meredith Taylor on her way to the airport for a much-needed vacation right now. So we are at 45 East Main Street, formerly at 71 East Main Street. We've been in business in October. It'll be 6 years. And we actually moved last year after a huge renovation, going from 1,300 square feet to an adorable 2-story house to a storefront in the downtown area. And we are now at 3,600 square feet. We did an extensive renovation at the former location of Jenny Boston, using Tom Kelly from Original Contractors, local contractor, to do our renovations. And what we're proposing for our grant would be one of the things that we did a change order for a pedicure station at the time. This was a service that we did not offer originally, but we brought it in. Our nail tech is actually, we recruited her from Boston, so she is bringing a lot of clients, former clients of hers that are traveling from other towns in Massachusetts to come and see us there. We were originally going to go with a pre-made pedicure chairs from a manufacturer located in New York, but we decided to kind of change our mind and go with something more custom built. I don't know, do you have a?
I do have the presentation,
Okay, yeah,
yes.
if you have something, just so we can show it, Zach, that would be awesome. And while Zach is getting that up, just so you know, we, thank you. Both Meredith and I are living in Westborough. I graduated from Westborough High. My grandfather's name is in this hall, as a matter of fact. But Meredith's children go to Westborough school systems. We're also very involved with our community. We donate to anybody that asks us to for silent auctions, raffles, things of that nature. We also sponsor a softball, little girls softball team in town. So we do as much as we possibly can to support the community and benefit those around us. And one of our goals as business owners is to not just support our own business, but to support a lot of local other businesses. So, you know, when people come into our spot and they ask us for restaurant recommendations, or where can I go and get my car detailed, or any of those things, we know where to send people. And it's been a great symbiotic relationship for many of our clients and for ourselves as well. So this just kind of gives an overview of you know, some of the businesses that we support. We also, this is a picture of the pedicure station that we built. We wanted it to be different. We are fully aware of how many other nail salons there are in town, but we wanted ours to be different. We wanted it to be a destination where people come to and can relax and enjoy their services. And then just a little bit about us that we've pretty much gone over already, but we do have a very long-term lease here. We've got a 10-year lease in Westborough, and so we are very, very dedicated to be here, to stay here, and be a huge part of our community on a daily basis.
Any questions for Allison? So just one housekeeping item: when it does come time to vote on this, I will be recusing myself because they are my tenant. So next on the agenda is the EDC grant application for Liquor Point. Do we have a representative from Liquor Point with us?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Great.
Very good morning, board members, and thank you for having me at the meeting, and thank you for giving me an opportunity. Can you guys hear me clear?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, thank you. All right, so the Liquor Point is in the initial stages of having a setup, or it's building the store in the West Meadow Plaza, which will be located at 168 Milk Street, Suite 8A in Westborough, right next to the Ocean State job lot. Earlier, there used to be Kim's Taekwondo training center, so we will be utilizing that space. The architect of ours is working actually on, just change of that occupant permit, and we are in the initial phases of setting up the store. Our ABCC license approval is still pending, so we received the town approval after our initial hearing that happened on 24th of May this year. The storefront is around 3,600 square feet, and then we will be getting involved in a long-term lease with the landlord, and thankfully the landlord actually is the Ocean State Job Lot who owns that plaza. The long-term lease would include 10 plus 10 years, so we are going with 10 years with the renewal of 10 plus years. So it's a long-term project that we'll be working on, or a long-term tenure that we'll be having actually for that store over there, and maybe more than 20 years. So the storefront will include a 17-door walk-in cooler, checkout counters. We'll have liquor shelves, wine racks, new arrival gondola, wine tasting counter. We'll have a good storage space area. The initial project scope and the pricing is, budgeted around $300,000, as we are trying to bring in, the best in class of, the inventory also over there. The reason for, participate in this grant is that we also want to bring in something like a novel concept, which is not so popular among liquor stores, but it's gaining popularity, which is having the cheese and wine pairings. So if at all, we are being granted, the funds, we are looking to have an open air cooler with 2 levels, double compressor that would help us actually store cheese. And we will have the labelings over there as to what cheese can go with what kind of wine. We are looking to involve local breweries to participate and have their showings as well. If we work out with them and they agree to that. This concept is very unique, and it's gaining popularity among millennials as they ask for this kind of pairing. The concept as well, for us is unique, and that's what we want to present actually in the town of Westborough.
Nitesh, I think we lost you. Could you maybe check your connection, or?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, so at what point, did you guys hear me anything, or did you guys lose me right from the beginning?
Just the last couple seconds.
Yeah, I think you were mid-sentence, so maybe restart your previous sentence from the beginning.
Okay, so the wine and cheese pairings is gaining popularity among millennials, and it's a novel concept which is gaining popularity actually around the stores. It's something unique that we want to bring in the town of Westborough. So this will really help actually draw good customer base, and plus they will be educated about this cheese and wine pairings. For example, the Pinot Noir or sparkling rose goes with Parmesan, or Cardamone goes with ricotta cheese. So those are some of the pairings. And then there are a whole lot available as well.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question. If I understood you correctly, are you still waiting for your ABCC license?
Yes, so we are waiting for the ABCC license. We have the town approval, our application was approved at town, and it has gone to ABCC for the approval. And Sila, actually, I think the administrative assistant over there with the board, with the select board, is keeping us updated. It's still in process, yes. But we have started our process at our end of ordering, the supplies and stuff like that.
Yep. So is your lease then pending the approval of the ABCC? You haven't signed your lease yet, is that correct?
No, lease is signed, yes. The lease has been signed.
But if you don't get the ABCC, you can terminate the lease, I would assume.
Yes, we have that option.
Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay. And so have they submitted a building permit application yet, or are they waiting on everything at this point?
I think they have one, Todd, but I don't.
Have you submitted a building permit application yet for your work?
So the architect actually is working. So initially we have submitted, but the architect is going with a more robust plan around to mark up everything that would be, been planted in the store. So that's why we are coming up with a new set of drawings, which will be submitted soon by our architect. I think we are anticipating this Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Could you tell us the approximate square footage of the store?
3,600 square feet.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the EDC grant application for Skinworks. Mary Beth Grenier.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Grenier. I'm not as well spoken and I'm a little bit shy, so please excuse me for being a little nervous up here. I have worked for over 20 years with a doctor locally in Northborough as their esthetician. And I finally decided that it was time to sort of move forward, and before she retires, I need to sort of make my own plan, and this is what I've decided to do. I've been looking for over a year now, God bless you, for space that would be a little bit more intimate, a little bit more private for my clients that I presently have, a little less spa-ish and more sophisticated, intimate, and I finally found that at the Chauncey Building on Lyman Street. My issue, as I've been looking over the past year, has really been the plumbing. The plumbing has been a stopping point for me because the finances are so high to put in plumbing in a room. And finally, after speaking to Zachary, thankfully, I found him, and he had told me about this grant, and I sort of just crossed my fingers and bit the bullet and put the sink in the room and signed the lease and ready to go, basically waiting for inspection myself. So everything is in place, and I'm just waiting by the phone for the final inspection.
Well, I know you, I think we've spoken a couple times over the past year on some sites that I had, so it's great to see that you ended up in Westborough.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yes.
Glad to hear
It's
that.
been a long road,
Yeah.
but I'm right there, so hopefully.
Any questions?
So are you open at that location yet, or?
I am not open. I have to wait for the state board to approve it. I have weekly conversations with them.
So any day?
Any day, any minute. All I have to do is hand it to the inspector to come and, the sink's been inspected, the electrical's been inspected, everything has been inspected individually. And I actually have just been having a conversation realizing that the board itself apparently has some issues. Thank you. That maybe there's not enough people to come and inspect. So that's sort of what we're waiting for, is just to get that date to move ahead. So I am presently still at my previous job until the end of this week. So I'm really hoping that after that, it'll come along quickly.
Great. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next is the discussion of the EDC grant awards, which I'll let Zach handle. And Zach, maybe we spent a lot of time and effort in the last year on the rubric, and maybe give a quick overview to the new members of the board so they understand what went into this and how we're utilizing it now.
Certainly. So I think backing up a little bit to provide some history about the grant program is it actually started in, I want to say, the end of 2019, early 2020. And then, at the same time, my predecessor, moved on to a new position, and we didn't fill that role for some time after that. In addition, COVID sort of changed the priorities of the board and made it a lot harder for the board to meet, especially over that early 2020 period. And so really kind of 2021, late 2020 is when, the grant program started to take off. And then over sort of the past year, we've received many more applications than I think the committee has received in the past. And so as the competitiveness of the program increased, the board decided that it would be helpful to have some sort of guide or guideline for what applications to fund in a super competitive process. And so over the past couple months, we worked together to try and create this rubric to score applications to help determine which ones the board would fund and which ones it wouldn't. I want to reiterate, especially to the new members, that this rubric is not the entire formula. This is intended to be a guide, and there's art to the science as well. And so, there might be an application that scores lower on the rubric that the board would like to fund, and that's okay. And there might be applications that score higher that the board might not choose to fund, and that's okay. And so the way that this typically works is that a staff working group comprised of Fred, myself, and John Steinberg, our chief assessor, meet and we go through the applications to evaluate them for completeness, eligibility, and then we go through the rubric to the best of our knowledge to score those applications. Then we actually ask follow-up questions to the businesses, to answer some of the questions that we might not know off the top of our head. So things like employment, whether or not they identify as a minority, women, or veteran-owned business, things like that. And so we put together the scores, which are in front of you. It's a pretty close distribution this time around, so I think that's going to make for a difficult choice. And then I think the other thing, too, that's a piece of the rubric is to decide how you want to allocate the money. So you could choose to give two businesses their full $5,000 grants. In the case this quarter, all of the requests were for $5,000. You could choose to fund, maybe the top two businesses, or you could choose to fund the top business at 5, and then two other businesses at 2.5. And then as well, I think it's fair to ask the folks who are still on the call and here, if you do play with the award amount, whether or not that would still be helpful to those businesses. But otherwise, I think, it comes down to a discussion of, based on the rubric, which projects you might want to fund, if there are any lower scoring or higher scoring projects that, might not align with how the board wants to use these funds, and then a discussion about, how are we going to allocate this money?
And Zach, maybe you can follow up with I think there were some comments made or some concerns about the Lindsay Taylor work that was being proposed.
Yes, and so I actually spoke with Meredith yesterday about the project. The working group had a couple questions about the project because as the old members will know, but the new members might not, we actually did provide Lindsay Taylor a $1,000 award in February of 2022 at our Q3 of fiscal year 2022 cycle. And so part of the program requirements are that you cannot receive an award or multiple awards for the same project. A business, that has received money through the program could do a different project and receive a second award through that. But for the same project, and this is something that we talked about actually pretty recently at a meeting a couple months ago, it should be ineligible to do the same project. And so one of the critical questions that the working group had, which I then reached out to Meredith to ask about, was, how different is this than the project that you had previously applied for? And I think that they had applied for build out at their last project. I know that this was a change order. So one of our questions was, did this happen, before you opened or not? And, please correct me if I'm wrong with any of the, that's why we bring you guys in. It's my understanding that this work did happen before they opened, but it wasn't part of the sort of, initial build-out. It wasn't part of their initial order. That said, I would consider it to be an ineligible project, but there was also a pretty unique circumstance, I think, the last time that Lindsay Taylor applied, which was that, that quarter, if you recall, we received 10 applications, I think totaling almost $30,000 in funding requests. We typically give out $10,000 a quarter, and, Lindsay Taylor got 1,000, which was 20% of what they had sought, and so I wanted to, give the board the opportunity to evaluate, especially because this is also the highest scoring project on the rubric. I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to decide if you wanted to fund, a technically ineligible project or not. Something that the grant program in the overview does say is that it is at your discretion whether or not you want to fund, basically any project.
And Zach, at that time when they were awarded the $1,000 grant, we were not using was the rubric?
We were not using the rubric. And in fact, it was that meeting that spurred the need for a rubric.
Right.
Excuse me for 1 second.
Yep.
We had a Zoom issue, it looks like, so
Yeah.
they're kicked off.
Yeah, so while we're waiting, I think, and for the newer members, something else, so we give out $40,000. We're considering requesting an article at Fall Town Meeting to increase that amount. And at our last
Right.
meeting, what did we say, 50? Or maybe
Well,
we hadn't
we
hadn't finalized
right.
it.
We just had general discussion on whether the board wants to go up to 50, 60, whatever, but we haven't zeroed on that. So typically, what's happened, we've changed this over the time that we used to take the applications as they came in, but in the last year, the board's done it in quarters. So if you look at that, you look at typically granting 10,000 per quarter, which would maximize the 40,000. With Zach's addition, we've had no problems getting grant applications, so it's been easy to give away the 40,000. We put it at that. So it's certainly, as Zach had mentioned, it's up to the board to decide. I mean, the easiest thing would be kind of decide if Lindsay Taylor is actually qualified. I think that you need to start there maybe, and then kind of figure out how you want to dole out the 10,000 for the quarter.
Just a quick question. Where does the money come from?
The revenue from billboard fees, like those billboards on Route 9, and I believe there's also one on the Massachusetts Turnpike. And I think actually one on 495 as well.
What's strange is even if the link, okay, I think we got back.
So we have a gift account that comes through that. So we're fully funded for a while.
So it's a revolving
Well,
fund.
yeah, my apologies.
Okay.
And so not all of the money that comes from billboard fees is currently going into, well, it's all going into the revolving fund, but not all of it is allowed to be expended under the bylaw. And so this proposed warrant article that we'll talk about would amend the bylaw to increase that amount.
Thank you.
Right.
Is there an approximate range of how many applications come in per quarter?
No, we've had anywhere from, 4 or 5 to, we had 10 one quarter, so it's impossible to predict.
We've had as few as 3 to 10. I would say an average of 4 to 5.
Yeah, anyways, it's been very successful in the last year. Let me just kind of leave it at that. So we've had a problem issuing the 10,000 per quarter in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Do we have to vote on that? Is that something?
well, I think we need to have a discussion about Lindsay Taylor and whether or not we feel that qualifies. As I mentioned before, I'm going to recuse myself from that discussion. So, you being the new vice chair, this is going to be your first order of business.
Learn by doing.
Great, welcome to the new job, huh? All right, so I guess I'm going to open up the floor here for discussion on the Lindsay Taylor, whether it be eligible for the award. Does anyone have any comments, concerns, questions?
To start the discussion and make a motion that it is eligible to receive the grant.
Okay, can we get a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, so I guess I'm sorry, Christy, do you have something?
I guess I was just going to add, if that was the meeting where we had 10 applications and we only gave $1,000 to each, I feel like I remember that we did tell people that they could apply again. So I think that also sort of plays into this. So I agree with you, because I think we did give that guidance at the time.
Okay, I do remember that as well.
So, I mean, I would think, a maximum award of 4,000 potentially would be appropriate as they partially had funded their project.
Okay. Does anyone else have any discussion or any comments? All right, so I believe the motion on the floor is that they are eligible for the grant award this month. I guess we do a roll call again. Is Mark still on the call? So roll, I guess we'll start with Jim.
Sure, Jim, yes. Jim Robbins, yes.
Kearney, yes.
Zeph, yes.
Bagden, yes.
Really, yes.
Keo, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Williams, yes.
Okay.
Perot, yes.
Okay, Mark, thank you. You're not on the screen all the time, so. Okay, so the
I have to
motion.
switch computers.
Oh, there we go. So the motion passes that Lindsay Taylor is eligible for the grant application for this quarter. So going forward now, should we?
So I guess in the past, we usually do one vote to allocate all the funds, but perhaps what we can do here is one vote for Lindsay Taylor and then maybe handle the other one separately, if you want me to be involved in that vote. Otherwise, I can just kick back and relax.
I think now we have some discussion about all 4 applicants, right, to determine sort of how we feel about all of them, and then, oh, right. but
Whether you
since
want
need a separate, but
whether you
yes.
want to vote as a group as
Right.
to how you want to allocate it or individually, I'll leave that up to you guys.
Sean, could you recap that, what you just said about the 4,000? I'm sorry.
Oh, so the maximum award is 5,000, and so at a meeting last year, they received 1,000, so the differential, would that be
Okay.
appropriate?
Yeah, and let me point out, there is one exception to that. If somebody has a matching grant through a state agency or whatever it may be, we can award up to $10,000 for that particular applicant. We don't have that in front of us today, that's just for future reference. Sorry,
You're
so
done, I was gonna say something.
I would suggest that the whole intent, the rubrics was to use it and look at the scoring, so I would make a motion to grant $4,000 to Lindsay Taylor, which would be the maximum amount in this particular case.
Well, sorry, I think we had talked about 10,000 a quarter, correct?
Right.
So
Correct.
but we have 20,000 in front of us, right?
Well, total, yes, if we were to grant.
In request.
Application.
Yeah, in request,
So,
correct.
so do we need to make a separate motion about, if we want to give Lindsay Taylor 40% of that money? I would like to have discussion about all the applicants
Sure.
before we award 40% to one applicant.
Fair enough.
I rescind my motion. Well, again, I'd go to that, we talked about not just splitting up the $10,000 by 4.
Yep.
Right.
So you're saying because they're the highest?
Correct.
score.
I was
see.
basing it on the scoring that,
I see.
if you're fully, and that's just a thought.
I'm gonna respectfully, we have 3 businesses who are new in town, that each have a very unique offering to town. I think if we are looking to support new businesses, that we might want to, and Lindsay Taylor's established, they've been here for 5 years, and I think that's wonderful. But we've got, 3 new businesses that are just trying to get off the ground, and so supporting those new businesses in the town with unique offerings, I think we should be mindful of that as we're talking.
The only thing I would say is, as it relates to Liquor Point, they don't have their ABCC yet, and I don't think they have their building permit yet. So perhaps it's a little premature to give them a grant, and maybe we recommend that they come back next quarter. That's a thought.
I was going to suggest similar when you brought that up, the same thing. They might be a later quarter, the next quarter or the following, pending where they're at with the state. I don't know how long these things take, but just so we're not granting money and then finding out that something goes wrong in the state process.
Was there a specific part of Liquor Point that the money was to go to?
A walk-in cooler.
Walk-in cooler, okay.
But they need the building permits for that, so.
I would agree that it seems premature.
Something that I will add to that discussion is that I do think that, in my opinion, as a economic development staff, it is best to use the money on projects that haven't necessarily happened yet, rather than reimbursing folks for things that have already been done in terms of the impact that the funds are actually going to have on a project. So even if they haven't gotten through all the permitting yet, I would not, or I would caution the board from disqualifying them for that reason.
I think it's more the actual liquor license, so they can technically still back out of their lease.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm comfortable with sort of deferring that one. I don't know if they necessarily need to come back in front of us, or we can just sort of
Right, just
hold their
reapply.
Table their
application.
application.
Well, that's a valid point, because if we vote to give them money and they don't use it, then it kind of, well, we can extend that forward in another quarter too, so I guess it go either way on that.
We don't have any estimate of how long the build-out would take from the approval to opening, do we?
Well, is he still on the call?
No, he was on
Yeah,
this.
I'm on the
Oh, he
call.
is, okay.
I'm on the call.
Would you wait until you actually got ABCC approval before you start any of the build-out? Would that be a fair assumption, or no?
So see, I mean, ABCC approval is, it's a one formality that we wait for. It is taking longer than a little normal. That's what we know from the other applicants, actually, that we know from the other towns. That is taking a little longer, but I mean, Sheila mentioned about it's taking between 90 days, from the time you had an approval, 90 to 120 days. So we might be right around the corner actually to get the approval of ABCC. And what I'm listening to the discussion, and in case if a grant has been given, but yes, it has not been awarded to us. Yes, the town can have it, but yes, if we get the license and then we can get started, and then we have been given the funds, that's a request from our side, if that's possible.
So if I understood that, I think he's waiting to do the build out, so
Right.
Right.
that would take a month or two, I'm guessing, if
yeah.
not more.
Want to put us in the next quarter?
I agree with Todd. We should wait for next quarter.
And I guess we could make an exception if we wanted to with this customer, this client here, that we could take him back before the quarterly time, since he's technically, we could almost table this and bring it back in a meeting at a time in 2 weeks, the next meeting, as opposed to waiting a whole quarter. If they were, say, in September, they had the build out and the license, they could come in front of us earlier as an individual from this time, or less. If that's a concern for the business getting the money faster, it's a way of us trying to help them.
I don't think timing's going to be an issue, because I think that by the time he gets his license from the ABCC,
Yeah, I think
it doesn't, sounds like his CDs are not completed yet in order to submit for permit. It sounds like his architect's still working on that. By the time the CDs are done, gets the permit in for application, could be a 30-day process.
Correct.
So I don't think timing's going to be an issue.
Okay.
I'd also be concerned with awarding money off cycle, because we
Yeah,
feel to
yeah,
be
I
fair
wouldn't
to
want to
other
do that.
grants.
I agree.
And for reference, the next application deadline is mid to late October, so it really isn't as far as I think it
Right.
feels.
Seems, yeah.
Right, okay. All right, let's have further discussion on how we want to, or what, thoughts and ideas on how we want to allocate the funds. We do have the rubric in front of us. As we've pointed out, we created this to kind of give us some guidelines on how we may want to allocate funds.
Looking at the rubric and speaking in favor of the Lindsay Taylor proposal, if you look at the rubric, they are the only business in the downtown. And they are the only business in operation for 5+ years. Initially, one of the visions of the EDC was to help businesses locate in town, which was spoken to earlier about new businesses coming to town, but also to have businesses that locate here expand in town and continue to grow. And as Allison said earlier, the business has grown from one location to another location and has expanded in size, which is the mission of the EDC, to help businesses prosper in town. So I think that adds to the strength of their application, in that they're the only business that actually provides points in the rubric in those two categories. I think it's a strong application based on that and those two points, those two criteria.
So Jim, do you have any, you're always very good about this, any idea, any recommendations or thoughts on how we allocate the funds, given what you just stated and the impact that Lindsay Taylor has had in the community? And
Well, I do appreciate businesses that have been successful locally.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's using local contractors, I
Right.
think also adds to the strength. I would give her the full award that she's requested, the $4,000 in this case.
Is that a motion?
Well, so would you, and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but would you, if we are then deferring Liquor World, would you say split up the remaining 6 equally between a Crystal Mine and Skinworks? So 4-3-3?
That sounds good to me.
Not putting words in your mouth.
I was actually going to make that motion.
Yeah, I was thinking the
We
same.
were all, I think a lot of us
Yeah,
are the same.
we're on the same page on that. Yeah.
Is there a motion?
So,
You can make it. Amend your motion.
So I'll make a motion that we grant Lindsay Taylor the full $4,000 in deference to the formula that she could have had 5,000, but she already received 1,000, so 4,000 for Lindsay Taylor, and 3,000 each for Crystal Mine and Skinworks.
I'll second that. Zeph, second.
Okay. Since Lindsay Taylor's a part of this vote, I'm going to recuse myself, and I'll let Mark handle it.
Good morning. All right, so we're going to call to a vote here. It's roll call, so I'll start again with.
There might be further discussion.
Any more
maybe
discussion? I'm
or
sorry. I
questions.
thought we were.
You need a second on that.
He seconded.
I
it.
did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Is there any more discussion on the motion right now is 4,000 to Lindsay Taylor, 3,000 to the Crystal Mine, and 3,000 to Skinworks?
No, I think that's appropriate. We would certainly urge Liquor Point to come back next quarter because certainly they are, putting together a project that's of interest to the town.
Yep. Anything else? All right, I guess we'll start. Jim, again, I'll call it, not to call you quick there, but go ahead.
Robbins, yes.
Kearney, yes.
Zeph, yes.
Bagden, yes.
Rayleigh, yes.
Keo, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Williams, yes.
And Mark? Yes. There we go. Thank you very much. Unanimous. So the motion passes. Congratulations to all our businesses here, and hopefully Liquor Point will come back next quarter when they get all their stuff together here, and we'll go from there. All right, I'm going to hand this back to you there, Todd.
All right. Great.
May I just pop in for a hot second?
Yes.
So I would like to thank you all very much for the consideration. I'm really excited to be a part of the community, and I'm extremely appreciative of the award that you've given us to grow in the town. And I also, before I leave the meeting, wanted to mention one more thing that I feel of this great interest that I didn't get to mention earlier and forgot to, is in the growth that we plan to do, I envision us becoming a destination location. So like a crystal shop is not always easy to find, but people who are on the look for it, they'll go far and wide for it. So I envision that, people who come or travel to our state from out of town will be in search for something that we do, and that we will be able to bring in a lot of outsiders into the town too. So we're really excited to be a part of that as well. So thank you all very much. I look forward to being a part of the town. Appreciate your vote. And I look forward to meeting any of you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is a discussion with the Quarter 9 495 Chamber and tax classification. Karen, welcome.
Good morning. Welcome all of you. Well, thank you for welcoming me to your meeting for a very important discussion. And thank you for introducing me to future prospects for joining the Quarter 9 495 Chamber. Actually, I know Lindsay Taylor, and we've stopped by Crystal Mine already, So in the interest of having a good conversation today, we have been supporting single tax classification for many years. I know this is of no surprise to anybody here. What was brought to my attention last year is that there was probably going to be a good consideration of that discussion of maybe moving to a different rate. I don't know where we are with that. I understand you had an informational meeting about that.
I mean, I can give a quick.
Love to hear
if
more
that's
about
helpful.
that, yeah.
So as everybody knows, at the annual town meeting last year, we estimated an increase for fiscal 23 this year of a average single family tax increase of almost $1,100, which is significant. And so that's something that the board, and I think this group has also, and as well as the AFC, have talked about. Is this a good time to really consider a split tax rate? And so so the board had asked that we do some education around this. And so at the July 19th select board meeting, we had our chief assessor and our finance director come in and sort of do an overview of tax classification and sort of how it works and what the different considerations might be. This is the beginning of sort of a series of educational meetings. The board will likely take up the discussion again at their second meeting in August. And then in September, we're looking to have some of like a public forum. And then further discussion for the board in October. And then the classification hearing happens in November every year. And it's under the purview, solely the authority of the select board to decide whether or not to split the tax rate, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, that being said, obviously the position of the Corridor 9495 Regional Chamber is that we're in support of single tax classification. We're not in support of shifting the burden in any which way to business. And some of the points that we make for that is it's a great attraction for doing business in our town, having a favorable single tax rate. I know that's been definitely a good point for our developers in helping to attract people here in town. Obviously, we have a great school system, and that's very publicly known, and publicly known of a great place to live here. But most importantly, some of the points that we do make too is that your businesses are big community supporters. I mean, they're the ones that are funding your little leagues, your community celebrations. They're the ones that are funding a lot of things that are very important to the town, obviously along with the residents. But I also believe that the business community also would like and benefit, and before I move on about this, I'd like to make note that you do have 2 representatives on your committee that are board of directors of the Corridor 9495 Chamber, which is Sandy Kearney and Dave Bagden, so I'd like to note that. But most importantly, and obviously Mark Verrold, Chris Egan is on our board too, we as a board of directors fully support this, and we believe in education too. So I guess that's the point I want to bring out too. It is our plan to do a lot of educating over the next couple of months too. We think it's important to bring awareness, not only to the residents, to the business community, what that means to them if there was ever a vote that goes to a dual tax classification, a split tax rate. So it is our plan to do a lot more educating about it this year. What we have found that a lot of people just doesn't know what that means to them. So we're looking at putting a video together about it and using some of our core members to talk what that would mean to their business. Also to bring and drive home some of the points that are relevant, like such as a lot of the businesses here do not use all the services of the town as much as as the residents do, because not all the employees live here in town or using or have children in your school system. I also think that we're very fortunate as a 5-town chamber representing Westborough, Northborough, Southborough, Shrewsbury, and Grafton all have a single tax rate. Obviously, it's a good attractor for us when we talk about being a business-friendly town and doing business here in Westborough, is that we are making sure that we are keeping aware that we don't want to shift a lot of burden in business. We also know that business has gone through the last 3 years and still trying to come out of COVID. And we've seen the impact of some of that on businesses, with a lot of businesses closing. Happy to see a lot of new business growth here in Westborough, but we want to show that we still hold that sign out that we are business friendly and we want to support the business community. So education is going to be something that we'll probably do our own educational forums, especially for the business community, what that means to their business. As much as we're going to do your part, I think we're going to find that we're going to do our part in educating everybody about what that means too. Dave, Sandy, you want to add anything to that as board members?
Well, I think the education component is key. I applaud the Board of Selectmen for taking the initiative to be as up to speed as possible. No one wants to see an increased burden on taxpayers. No one wants to see that. I think it's just important to understand the ramifications of if the town is viewed as perhaps a little less business friendly because of the tax rate or whatever. Those all are intertwined. All those factors have an effect on one another. So I think it is the Chamber of Commerce's responsibility to make a case for why that is not a simple shifting of dollars from here to there. What is the impact? And taking a look at us globally with the neighbors that we have in a commercial sense, we are very attractive here in Westborough, and others are not doing as much as we are, like with this board, to try and attract business. So keeping that momentum going, trying to anticipate what the impact of that'll be on the business friendliness of Westborough, I think is what this board and the Chamber of Commerce need to push. Education is, everybody needs to understand the implications.
And I think, giving data, as far as what the employee base is of these companies, and do they all live in town, and are they using resources and things like that? Again, I've got 2 kids in the school system, so, there's, we definitely want to continue to support our schools and everything going on here. But I agree that the friendliness of the town to the business, attracting people to come here, it's a great place to live and to work. And we don't want someone saying, oh, well, Northborough doesn't have dual classification, so they're right over the border, we're just going to go there. I think it'll be I think it'll be a challenge if we go to dual.
And so I guess I have a question to you as the EDC committee. I think in the past that you have also come out in favor of maintaining a single tax classification. Is that up for discussion with this committee annually, every year?
I think our intent, we talked about it early in the process because at town meeting there was mention of that in the public forum, and so we wanted to kind of get a jump start on this, and we're happy that you're here with us, and we look to collaborate with you on this effort. But absolutely, that's something that we want to, eventually we will make our recommendation to the Board of Selectmen. We want to talk to some of the local businesses. I think working in conjunction with you, having these educational forums, we'd love to be a part of that. It'd be great to hear what the businesses are saying, and communicating that back to the Board of Selectmen and the residents in town also.
Absolutely, it affects both, but I also think education is the important part.
Yeah.
In the past, this is conversation that we've had with other boards, definitely with the Southborough. We had an issue a couple of years ago that a meeting was held where we were not present, and we had the opportunity to have that discussion again, and for them to reconsider, and the business community was able to be heard. So I think it is important that we do our job, and as well as you do a great job in finding out what our business community knows and what that means to them too. Because there is a balance here in this town. Obviously, we have a great town to live in, some of the best services available, and we're the biggest advocates for that, and as long as you are. So we're all here to support the business community, which is, I know, is a big part of your role too. So I'd love to be collaborators on this effort if that's what this committee feels that they're going to move forward with doing too.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I would just say that the September meeting being a public forum for the select board, in parallel to whatever meetings you're having, the board would welcome comment from businesses as well as residents. So.
And I think it's important to include in the educating the residents. So like you said, a lot of the businesses support the little leagues and things like that. Higher taxes are going to mean that maybe they're going to pull back from some of that community service that they do.
Also, we all remember when, Astor pulled out of town, which was a very high revenue tax base for this town. Business in here and that balance, people have to think more long-term, because house raising is going to go up, and if there's not as much business here to do the balance, I think you can see a long-term impact. And I think that's where we do have to educate people. There is a balance. And so, obviously, I'm here to support the business community. That's my role. But I understand that both sides of both residents and the businesses are doing their part to support our community. But as we all know, that our business community are great supporters of a lot of things that are happening in our town too.
If I could make a suggestion, I think along the line of education, it's important to have some of the high-profile businesses that are newly located here in Westborough speak to the choices that they made for that location. And as your town planner for 30 years, I've been hearing from businesses that one of the primary reasons that they locate in Westborough is because of the single tax rate. When they could choose communities, larger communities to our west or to our northeast that have classification, they choose Westborough not just because of its location, but because of the single tax rate. That's the number one reason they choose to locate in Westborough. So I think that those who would be concerned and in favor of classification need to hear from the business community, the large taxpayers, why they choose Westborough and why they choose to stay in Westborough. And the single tax rate is probably the largest reason they choose to stay in Westborough.
Jim, that's well said. I was part of the meetings before COVID, especially when you had your ambassador program, and there was a lot of outreach to some of the corporate and small business, and that feedback that your ambassadors brought was exactly what you talked about. Doing business here in Westborough because it's business friendly is the number one reason why they wanted to do business here. That in your school system, obviously, and obviously you have a beautiful community. And so added features of all this new business growth, and it's been so pleasing to me to see a lot of it happen since COVID, seeing some of the restaurants that closed and seeing some of the wonderful charm of your community. And we try to celebrate that all the time. And, you know, as I visited some of your businesses in the Rotary recently and just, you know, met with Claire and saying it was a tough 2 months because July is quiet around here, you know, and some of her concerns about the business community. So what I hear is what more burden is going to be put on my business. You know, I'm trying to strive and make it as a new business owner too. And so I think those are the conversations we're going to be having. But we also realize we need to educate our community, just like I think you're doing a great job doing too. I think that's where we're going to do that personal outreach too, and bring in some of those people that you're exactly talking about.
And another point regarding that is that Westborough doesn't receive a lot of requests for tax breaks. We don't receive a lot of requests for tax increment financing TIFs.
Yep.
That, again, our neighbors to the west and to the northeast do give a lot of TIFs. And the taxpayer needs to understand that one of the reasons that classification hurts, or one of the ways that it hurts a local community is businesses ask for tax breaks. And we don't get that ask, and the business says right up front, we're not asking for a tax increment finance deal because of the single tax rate.
Well said, Jim. Thank you. Exactly right.
Christy, when is the meeting that the selectmen are
We haven't
having?
set the date yet, but we're going to do that soon so we can get it out there for September. But I was just going to say I would encourage anyone who, or if you hear from anyone who doesn't fully understand sort of what that means, a split versus a single tax rate, and not just because he's here, but our chief assessor did a really good job in July giving the selectmen, I think it was only about 45 minutes overview of kind of how that all works mechanically. And it's I think it's difficult because we're not really talking about specific numbers at this point because we don't have all the numbers, but just sort of understanding what the shift means and how it would impact residents and businesses and that's and then in September we're going to start that presentation off with talking more about what our neighbors are doing and what we're seeing sort of across the Commonwealth to give that perspective to the board as well.
Zach, can you resend the link to the meeting? Zach had sent it. I don't know if anyone watched it. If you hadn't, I suggest it's a great watch, just to see Professor Steinberg up there giving his. He did a great job. He did a phenomenal job, and he's a natural. So very knowledgeable of the subject, and I think it's very easy to follow and understand when you see him up there and his charts and graphs and stuff. So I think if everybody could take the time to review it, it would be fantastic. And then in the meantime, what we should do is maybe Zach and Karen, you can keep an open line of communication in preparation for when we do find out when that September meeting is with the Board of Selectmen, so we can go in
Well, I want to
prepared.
congratulate you for hiring Zach.
Oh.
What a great addition he has been. Our open communication lines are on a regular basis. He's been a great champion on behalf of your town. He comes to our board meetings, gives amazing updates. And I feel like we're very pleased and proud to be a great partner with you in this committee and champion all the things that we want to do on behalf of this town. So kudos to all of you for the work you're doing, and kudos to a great hire in Zach. And working with Fred has been a pure pleasure. Doing those ribbon cuttings and seeing you all there representing business, it means a lot to the business community. Believe me, it means a lot to the business community because they're part of their business. So I always look forward to future collaboration. So thank you for all the good work you're doing too.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
All right. We're only a couple minutes behind, so we're doing well here. We've got a packed agenda. Next on the agenda is this discussion with the Design Review Board, the sign bylaw changes.
You're
I know
going to
we-
catch up on your time here. Yeah, I know. So my discussions last week, or the week before, I should say, and on Monday, yesterday, with the Design Review Board members, they've decided to hold their proposed 3 changes to the zoning bylaw regarding signs until the March town meeting.
Okay.
They're not going to go forward in October. The reason for that is the devil's always in the details when you dig in. We were talking about it the last time, just to refresh your memories, transferring the authority for review of sign in the downtown purely for signs from the Historic Commission to the Design Review Board. Both the Commission, the Historic Commission, and the Design Review Board are in favor of that. I believe the planning board will be in favor of that too when it comes forward. It will streamline the process. Secondly, the Design Review Board did a survey of all of the signage in the downtown district, a walking tour, signs, notes on each of the signs, and we feel that having projecting signs or placards, which are signs that are perpendicular to buildings that are visible from the sidewalk, is a positive thing. Historically, way before me even, they have not allowed perpendicular signs. The few that we do have in town have been grandfathered over the years. We would like to go back to projecting signs, perpendicular signs. That's not a heavy lift, but that does require an amendment to the zoning bylaw. Lastly, we talked about removing signs on business storefronts that are no longer in use, meaning a business has moved and the sign remains for months. We would like to have that changed so that the tenant of the business that moves must remove their sign when they leave. What happens is often the business property owner is stuck with a sign after a business leaves, and it looks like the space is still occupied, which can be valuable, but also deters future possible tenants because they think the space is occupied because the sign remains. So we're looking at a way to be sensitive to the property owner, but require the removal of the sign. So those are two things that are in play for the spring town meeting, March town meeting. We're not going to do that in October. So don't expect any new bylaws to review in the next month.
So I understand the desire to delay 2 and 3, but 1, streamlining the process, is there, to me, I'd love to see that put in on the fall. I'm dealing with potential tenants downtown all the time, and they ask about signage, and admittedly, sometimes I say, well, I don't know if you need to go in front of the Historical Commission or the Design Review Board, which I used to be on.
Yep.
And then I just say, well, go talk to the building department, they'll tell you who you need to deal with. And I think if there was a way to streamline that process now rather than wait until next year, I'm all for it. Just because of what I've experienced firsthand with not only potential tenants, but actual tenants who've signed leases as well. And I'd just ask that you guys might want to reconsider that.
Yeah, you would think that would be the easiest thing to
Yeah.
do because it's
Yeah.
transfer of authority.
Right.
But the zoning bylaws have a specific section for the Historic Commission that quotes the statute and refers to town bylaws. So I would want town council to see if there's any need to amend the town bylaw as well as the zoning bylaw.
Okay, I see.
And so it's not as simple
Okay, yeah. All
as
right.
it should be. But I think that really the issue is what you pointed out. It's the confusion or lack of clarity
Yeah.
as to which department you would go to. So just again, for this board's edification, if you're only changing your sign, you go to the Historic Commission. If you're doing anything additional to the sign, changing a window, a door, roof line, whatever, you go to Design Review Board, and they do the signage as well as those other changes.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Jim? Comments? No? So, you're right, we gained some time there, thank you.
Yep, caught up.
Sorry. All right, next on the agenda is the Ambassador Program Overview and Job Description.
Todd, I'll project up here if you want to
Yeah,
walk everyone through
sure.
the presentation. You can. I'll just stay up here to click.
So, myself, Zach, and Fred had a working session last month to try to put together a job description for the Ambassador Program. For those of you that are new to the board, the Ambassador Program, you may be familiar with it, you may not. It's kind of, Peter's really our only ambassador back there. He's been an ambassador since day one, but it's a program that we used to utilize a lot. There used to be a handful of ambassadors. They would reach out to local businesses, established meetings with them, which the ambassadors, the economic development coordinator, and usually a representative or two from the committee would go as well. It was really just we utilize that to build relationships and educate people on the process. The ambassador program kind of, I don't want to say disintegrated. Again, we have Peter, who's done a phenomenal job. He's a one-man show, really. And what we would like to do is bring back that program even more so and really try to get more people to participate in that. Also, for me, myself, I started off as an ambassador. I did that for a number of years and then eventually went on to the committee. We've had a lot of interest from people that wanted to get on the committee in the last couple of years, and it might be a good prerequisite, not maybe a requirement, maybe something that would be viewed by the Board of Selectmen as a plus to somebody who's applying for an EDC position. So one of our goals this year is to focus on the ambassador program and growing that again. So we decided to start off by taking a look at the job description, and so what you'll see today is kind of a draft of what we came up with based upon our meeting. So, Zach, do you want to run with it, or you want me to run with it? It's up to you.
I'm happy to do it
Okay.
if you like. I mean,
Since you have the controls there, I'll let you do it.
So the first thing that we wanted to look at that we talked about was program goals. So, in order to come up with a role description for the actual role, we need to make sure that we're all aligned and on the same page about what are we trying to do here? What do we want these ambassadors to be doing? And so these are ordered in that I think the primary goal is to educate businesses about the EDC by providing a brief, i.e. 5-minute overview of the EDC's mission, makeup, and recent activities. So who are we? What do we do? Who's on the board? And, what have we been doing to support businesses? The second is to promote federal, state, and local resources, such as the EDC's Business Assistance Grant Program, the Shop Westborough Directory, One-Stop Meetings, PACE Massachusetts, Worcester Score, the Supply Chain Directory of the 495 Metro West Partnership, the Workforce Training Fund Program, and other grant programs or resources that become available over time. And so this piece in our minds is one of the most important pieces of the ambassador program, and this is something that we've talked about extensively over the last year, is pivoting the ambassador program from more of an information gathering tool about what businesses are up to, whether or not they have expansion plans in the future, whether their pain points are in the town, and how we can better support them. But especially in the post-COVID world, when there's a pressure on business time and it's hard to get your foot in the door unless you're providing a clear value proposition to those businesses. We want to make sure that our ambassadors are prepared, trained, and ready to be able to, quote, sell some of these programs to businesses. That when we get our foot in the door, we can say, hey, here's some of the stuff that we've done, and this is what our goal is. Our goal is to help support businesses and bring new business to Westborough. And here are some of the ways that we can tangibly actually help you today if you wanted to. And then the third goal is kind of back to that information gathering piece, which is identifying opportunities to support Westborough businesses by surfacing their pain points, their expansion plans, or relocation risk. Trying to sniff out if a business is unhappy, and if so, why, and how likely it is that they might want to relocate at the end of their lease or sometime in the future. So I'll pause for a second if anyone has any questions or comments on the overall program goals. And then Todd or Fred, if there's anything that you want to add, feel free. Great. The next piece is the process, and I won't go into, I think, too much detail here, but we tried to create swim lanes in a process flow chart for exactly how you meet and coordinate with the ambassadors and coordinate follow-up with the businesses. So in my mind, I think, relative to the board and to the ambassadors, one of the things that could help me personally is if the ambassadors did a little bit more lead gen as well as the board members. So if you guys have friends in business that we want to schedule an ambassador meeting with or check in on or make them aware of any kinds of programs and what we do, let me know. Connect me to them via email, and I'll do the work of coordinating. Okay, what's the right meeting time? Which ambassadors are we going to be able to bring to the meeting? Which board members are going to come to the meeting? And prepare the agenda and prepare any kind of materials that we want to bring into that meeting. But it would be just tremendously helpful if both the board members and the ambassadors help connect me to possibly interested businesses so that we can start building out that pipeline of ambassador meetings. Similarly, I'll kind of be leading outreach, and I might try to look at, I know in the past we've talked about looking at CoStar to see when folks' leases are expiring, to maybe prioritize some of those businesses, especially with an eye toward relocation risk. And I can kind of, sort of lead that overall strategy, but really I think a lot of how it was done in the past is, kind of word of mouth and connecting folks to folks or, businesses that in town or new businesses in town. And so, the more in which you can say, hey, we have an EDC, learn about what they do and, how they can help you today. talk to Zach. I think that would be incredibly helpful. Like I said, the next step in kind of the pipeline is scheduling, and so I'll try to coordinate all the scheduling. The way that'll work is that we'll schedule around the business's availability, and based on the business's availability, I'll reach out to board members and ambassadors to, basically assign an ambassador and a board member to that meeting. At the meeting, my role will be primarily to take notes and to answer technical questions about those federal, state, and local programs. But really, I think the ownership over the meeting is on the ambassador. So the ambassador, will be assigned to the business meeting and will really lead the meeting itself. Providing an overview of the EDC, a high-level overview of the relevant programs, and I'll work with the ambassadors to make sure that they know what those programs are and the details around them. And obviously, I'll be there to answer any technical questions as well. And then, the EDC members, it'd be great to have 1 or 2 EDC members there, to identify ways that the EDC can support these businesses, and also, share positive experiences, from you all of doing business in Westborough. And then finally is follow-up. So, I'll take on the role of collating with the ambassadors takeaways from each of these meetings, and then presenting regularly to the EDC on what, conversations have gone on and what takeaways we have. And I'll also, do follow-up with businesses as needed. So if somebody says, hey, I'm actually really interested in PACE, and, I'm going to be doing this big project, and, I want to make it energy efficient, can you help me figure out what I need to do? That's the kind of follow-up that I will, help provide these businesses. And then, the ambassadors, I think once they've been assigned a business, it should be their role to check in with those businesses periodically, such as every 6 months, just to make sure that any required follow-up that we need to do has been done, and that, things are still going well, and to check in and just see, if any of their concerns have been addressed. Any questions or concerns at this point? Great. And so now, finally, the role description, which we kind of backed into by thinking about the goals and the process, is so for preferred qualifications, must live or work in Westborough, so kind of similar to the qualification for the EDC. Ideally, they should have 4 to 6 hours of availability per month, including about 1.5 hours for EDC meetings. I think it'd be great if the ambassadors can attend, especially if this role is going to be a pipeline to EDC membership, and then 2 to 3 hours for business meetings, or 3 to 4 hours for business outreach for outreach as needed. And when we say outreach as needed, what we're talking about there is that the EDC has been doing a lot more projects that require extensive outreach to the business community, such as the online business directory project. Peter Allen was tremendously helpful in us spreading the word about that project and getting businesses to sign up. And so, the next kind of project in our pipeline is a minority and women-owned business study, and trying to identify ways that we can better support those business communities. And that is also going to require a lot of outreach. Things like the Winter Stroll, getting businesses to participate and sign up in that requires a lot of outreach. And so part of the ambassador role is not just the regular meetings with businesses to sell programs to them and unearth their pain points, but also to do outreach as needed on some of the projects and programs that we work on. Also, they should have an interest in economic development and the Westborough EDC, and ideally, this is sort of like a not mission critical, but ideal is having strong connections to local businesses. For their duties and responsibilities, we would expect them to regularly attend EDC meetings, lead outreach for various projects, as I had mentioned, such as the Winter Stroll or the directory, assisting the EDC coordinator in identifying businesses for ambassador meetings and planning the agendas for those meetings, leading ambassador meetings with Westborough businesses, representing the EDC at various events, such as ribbon cuttings with the Quarter 9 495 Chamber, or the Quarter 9 495 Chamber's Business Expo, and then providing support to EDC working groups as needed. So basically, I think in summary, what the role boils down to is you're sort of a junior member of the EDC or a non-voting member of the EDC, where with a major focus on outreach and leading that outreach and doing the outreach that we need to get our projects done. So that's sort of where, after thinking about it, learning about the history, talking to Fred, Todd, and us working together, this is where we landed. I would be happy to answer any questions or feedback. If not, and if the board is comfortable with this program description and role description, I can start marketing this more to potential folks, because usually, and I think the reason how we got here is, when people ask, well, what's the commitment, we haven't always had, a very tangible answer. And I think it was Jim at our last meeting that was like, no, it would be very helpful for you to be able to say, this is what this is, and this is what the expectations are. And so now that we have that, I think it's going to make it a lot easier to bring people on board as ambassadors.
So Zach, as a chair of the Quarter 9 Ambassador Committee, we do a lot of that outreach as well. So it would be good, because that's our charge as well, is to go to different businesses and talk with them. So how would you see kind of partnering so that the businesses aren't getting like I went into the Coop and I'm like, hey, I'm part of the EDC board, I'm chair of the Ambassador Committee and president of Rotary Club. Like I just, all three at once, just kind of chatted with him a little bit about what's happening in town. So how would you look at the ambassadors as a partnership with the other, people in town that are going to those businesses? Like how can we educate them on what's happening with everything?
Yeah, so I think the more that the ambassadors have in their program toolkit, if that makes any sense, the better. The more that we have to be helpful to a business, whether it be, telling them about the EDC grant program, telling them about a Quarter 9 event, or a Rotary program that they can be involved in, I think the more value that we're adding to the service. So I would love to have opportunities to collaborate with the Quarter 9 ambassadors, or Rotary, or really anything that can add value to the EDC ambassadors.
Yeah,
and
Civic Club, the Lions Club, Women's Club, there are so many people in town.
Totally, I think that's a huge part of it. I'd love to have a conversation offline about kind of exactly what the spirit of the Quarter 9 ambassador committee or program is, and what you guys do and what your goals and missions are, and actually how you operate, and then we can try and identify ways to link up and partner. At very least, in terms of content, we can share information about PACE Massachusetts that businesses in the Quarter 9 Chamber might not know about, that your ambassadors can let them know about, or sniff out if they're interested in, or things like that. And then likewise, if there are Civic Club, Women's Club, Quarter 9 Chamber, events or things that we can add to our toolkit, I think at minimum that would be like the minimum viable product for collaboration.
Sounds good.
I think that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't, when the Coop is opening, all the hubbub around him, and he's got people coming and saying, well, I represent this and I represent that. I mean, the fewer faces that have the same message, I think, probably is better. I'm not sure that all registers with him, or any new business, who's who and who's representing what.
Yeah.
So a collaboration, obviously, Quarter 9 has the same goals as the EDC, support local business and build, so. I think that makes sense.
Well, I think these groups also sound like fertile recruiting ground for
That's
ambassadors.
a great point. I was thinking the same thing.
We absolutely are fertile. Yes.
Great. Any other questions, comments? So we all, Peter?
I guess as the only current ambassador, I know some of you have been ambassadors before for the EDC. I really welcome, in particular, this duties and responsibilities exhibit here. The ambassador program really was formed early on as a group that would wait until they were asked by the EDC coordinator to go out, and after a lot of businesses were asked if they wanted to have an annual meeting, and some of them didn't, but if some did, then they could supplement the EDC members who could in fact attend those meetings. So the ambassador group was really envisioned and set up as a supplemental personnel group, if you will, to attend meetings that were arranged by the EDC coordinator. And because that frankly didn't happen, the ambassadors kind of languished and were waiting for direction. I think it's great that an ambassador would get this kind of direction. And like Karen Chapman said earlier, I welcome the fact that Zach was hired, because he is asking me and Bonnie Sullivan and others to assist on things, and I think it's very useful. So I'm very much in support of this improvement.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, so it sounds like everybody's good with it, and this is something we can start to use going forward, as you mentioned, to provide to anybody that inquires about the EDC and the ambassador program. I think it's
I can add like another
perfect time.
page, sort of like or summarize it as an
Yeah.
ad, and then, I'd be happy to share that with our partners at the Quarter 9 Chamber, other folks in town, as well as the folks who've, expressed interest in the board over the last 12 months. Because I know we've said, be an ambassador, and, really, none of them have bid on that, and I think part of that's because it sounds kind of, somewhat opaque about what that means, so.
All right, great. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
So next on the agenda is the discussion in regards to expanding the EDC's Business Assistant Grant Program. I think, Zach, you were handling this one? This is the...
Yes, so I did
draft.
not print out a copy, but on the Dropbox, there is a draft language for an article to increase the, amount that we can spend in the grant program annually. There's a big XX where that number should be, so I would think that most of the conversation today would be around trying to decide how much we want to expand it. I know at the last meeting there were a couple of questions that board members had, and I have tried my best to get the answers to those questions. Specifically, there were questions around when does the money actually hit the account, because originally one of the reasons why the ability to spend did not match the amount of money that comes into the account every year was some concern around trying to not spend money that we don't actually have in the account yet.
Right.
Leah Talbot, finance director, tells me that the money usually hits the account in December in 2 payments, although it has come as late as March in the past. So sometime in Q1 of each year is typically when that money hits. And right now, or I guess as of May 31st, 2022, the EDC grant account has $78,100 in it. That number should not have changed since May 31st, as we haven't issued any new awards until this morning.
Zach, does that number, I know we approved a couple articles at our annual town meeting. Were those amounts?
Yes, I believe they are discounted from that number.
Okay, thank you.
Is that typical of the amounts that go in? What's typically that goes in every year?
60,000, if I'm correct, goes in every year.
We're allowed to spend 40 right now.
And we are allowed to expend 40,000 each year
Okay.
currently.
So to recap a little bit of the conversation we had before,
Sorry.
one of the things we talked about too was that even if you allocate up to, say, $60,000 as a committee, you don't have to actually spend it, but it gives you more flexibility if you ask to increase it. You'd want to think about not maybe going much over 60, because then you might not have the funds and you're kind of in the rears, and that's how we started off. COVID was actually our friend in that regard, because we had a kind of a lull in the awards, so we were able to build up the war chest, if you will, a little bit, so.
I think also going to 60 gives you the flexibility to maybe award more matching grants for the vacant
Right.
storefront program a little bit easier. In our current situation, if you were to award 2 grants in a year for the vacant storefronts program, which you are able to do so under the program requirements, that would leave you with $20,000 for the rest of the year. And if you did 1 in a quarter, that would wipe out the funds for that quarter on just 1 project.
Yeah, you also don't have to allocate, right now, the committee has looked at 10,000 per quarter, but you could also be flexible on that, maybe allocating more towards the 4th quarter, or whatever. I mean, collectively, you can decide to look at the monies a little bit differently.
Yeah. Well, I think you start by getting that flexibility by expanding the number that we get each year. So my feeling is that we go for the 60,000, and that would be my recommendation. And I'll make a motion that we vote to increase our annual EDC Business Assistant Grant Program to $60,000 a year. Again, not necessarily meaning that we have to spend it.
Right.
I second that motion.
maybe some language.
Yeah.
No, I just have a concern about spending the full amount. I mean, I know we have a balance, and so I think that that's great, but I do think that we have a lot of applications in front of us each time, and so I'm not sure that we would hold back on spending the amount of money that we can, because we haven't. And we were able to use that money for some other projects that we wanted to accomplish. So I know it would take a while potentially, because there is that balance, but that would be a finite amount that would just go
I mean,
away.
I think that, I don't know, I'd like to think we're all adults here and we can handle the checkbook and what we might have in the pipeline, but again, I'm not saying we necessarily need to spend it all, but it gives us that flexibility. There might be years where there's some projects in front of us that score 100 on the rubric, and we want to give them, more than what we would normally give.
Is there any wisdom to capping the number of applicants per quarter, so that you don't feel that everybody in attendance gets something?
Yeah, I think that was part of the reason for the rubric, right, was that there was some specific criteria involved, so we could then choose between people, because we did go a couple quarters where we kind of peanut buttered it across all the applicants. And so I think that's helped quite a bit. I get what Christy's saying. We did have a couple articles at this last annual town meeting that we put money towards projects, and it came from this account. And that was primarily because we were at a net positive, I think, every year. We felt comfortable using that money. If at a future annual town meeting, and those were articles that this board brought forward, this committee brought forward, we would probably then say, hey, we requested $15,000 out of this account at annual town meeting, so maybe next year we should only, although we're allowed 60, maybe we should only do 45 because we made a decision to allocate 15 other ways. So I'm comfortable that I think we would be wise enough to do that, but something to consider.
I also think that with having that, like Dak was saying, for that 10,000, that match, we say we're going to spend 40,000 on our businesses, and if we have a large match, then that would give us the flex. So versus, you've got 60 every quarter. No, 10 is allocated for anything that is of that larger grant, so we're able to do that when we have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Zach, on those larger storefronts, because then that's also matched by, is it a state program?
Yeah.
Does that require more lead time than this application process? Like, we may know further in advance if one of those is coming?
So we may know further in advance if one of those is coming, because I know generally what property, there's a specific list of eligible properties. If you're not an eligible property, if the town hasn't registered a property as being vacant for 12 months, then it's not eligible through the state program. We'd have to amend, the property list. But granted, we've only done this once with the COOP, but we matched the deadlines for the grant program to the vacant storefront program deadlines to give us enough time to be able to pull that application together. If even yesterday we found out that somebody wanted to apply for the vacant storefront and that they were coming to this meeting with a $10,000 grant request, we should be able to turn it around in time.
Okay.
There is flexibility, though, if the applicant can find their own program too, that this board could also match that. So vacant storefront is one example that we have, but there could be other things out there too.
Okay, we do have a motion with a second on the floor. Any further discussion?
I do have one question, which is just logistically speaking, Christy, if town meeting did approve this in October, when would it take effect?
After the Attorney General's approval.
Okay.
So then
First of the year.
60 to 90 days after it gets submitted.
Okay. Because and the reason why I asked is in my head, I'm just trying to do the math to make sure that we won't fall behind at any point. So if we have, let's say, about $80,000 in the account today, today we just awarded $10,000 in grants, and we'll probably do so again in November, and then we get $60,000 again in December, or let's say March in the worst case, and then we fall there's $50,000 in the account by March by the time we get $60,000 more dollars. So I think I'm just trying to sense check that we're comfortable with a $60,000 spending cap and that we won't fall behind at any point.
We wouldn't fall behind until we expended that balance,
Yeah, oh, I see, yeah,
because it's a buffer.
right.
We'd be okay for a while.
Or we could look
We
at
could-
this year being a $40,000
Yeah, just
year and
continue,
going
yeah,
through to the
till we-
next fiscal year, just roll into the
Yeah.
next, like, we have $40,000 this year, but next fiscal year we'll have 20,000 more, or whatever that number is. Might be a way to, like we did last year, we tried to keep it fair, like you said, we kind of spread the love over everyone we could last year, and we kind of continued that through the end of the year, because we had started that process early in the end, and we said that we can't change it in the last quarter, and all of a sudden say no to someone when we had kind of given everyone a little something. So I think the same way we go about this year is set the rules for this year, and then
continue to operate as if it
and then
would just
next
have the
year
40.
change the operations on the new calendar year, fiscal year. That's how we want to work it.
So does everyone apply for $5,000, or is there?
Not always. We've had a few folks apply for less. So Sheer Transformation applied for, I think, around like $3,000 to do window seats. They got, I think, about like something like 66% of.
So did they need to include quotes and things like that for what they're, yeah, okay. Sorry.
There's,
Yeah.
I mean, it is, and I hear what Chrissy's saying about, if you have it, will you spend it? So I don't know if there's any wisdom to discussing 50,000 over 60,000, and also I don't know if there's any wisdom to discussing that limitation per quarter, because if 6 people come in, that's going to be, people are going to have to go away empty-handed, or they're going to get peanut buttered. I like that, and it's.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to imply that we're not adults able
Well,
to
yeah,
monitor
I didn't-
ourselves,
sorry, I shouldn't have-
but my
shouldn't have
concern
said
is
it like
that
that. I apologize.
if that additional money is expended and we only have the 60,000 for the grant program, then the EDC for other projects would be competing for other dollars for free cash or something that would impact the tax rate, as opposed to right now, that money just sort of sits there until the EDC wants to move forward with a project. So it really, I think, is dependent on the projects that we have in the pipeline.
So how about this? How about I amend my motion to say that we will go forward requesting the 60,000 to expand the EDC's business assistant grant program, but continue to limit our grants to $40,000 until we so vote to change that, assuming that it goes forward.
I'll second that, I guess, if we
Or-
need.
It was amended, so the same person that seconded it before has to second it again? I don't know that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'm glad to second that. Yes.
All right. So we're not going to give out anything more than we are currently giving out for the time being. We'll request the expansion up to the 60,000, and then we'll make decisions at that time, which could be a year from now when all the funds are there. Assuming everything goes forward, assuming everything gets approved and it goes through at the town meeting, and then the funds are in the account. All right, so let's, I guess, no further discussion. Any further comments? All right, Alexander, yes?
Bagden, yes?
Zeph, yes?
Kearney, yes?
Robbins, yes.
Williams, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Keo, yes.
Rayleigh, yes.
Moreau, yes?
All right, great. Thank you all very much.
Todd, just a point of order, if I can back up one step. It was described to me on the ambassador program. Do we need to take a vote on that to approve that as
Yeah, for the
presented?
job description,
Yes.
going forward that. It doesn't hurt, I guess, to do that, right? Yeah, might as well. All right,
So I would make a motion that we accept the job description for the ambassador program as presented.
I'll second that.
okay. Alexander, yes?
Bagden, yes?
Zeph, yes?
Kearney, yes?
Robbins, yes.
Williams, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Keo, yes.
Rayleigh, yes.
Thank you.
Moreau, yes?
Oh, great. All right, thank you. Thanks, Fred.
Back on time?
Okay. Next on the agenda is the Planning Department report. Jim?
Sure, really quickly. At its last meeting, the planning board approved a special permit for a dog training school at 53 Turnpike Road. That's the former PetSmart. So it's going from pet retail to dog training. They also have retail products as well that they'll be selling. The planning board continues its discussions on the site plan review for 25 and 29 Research Drive. And for those that don't know that address, that's the location of the former National Grid, recently BJ's wholesale office building where they have their sales and headquarters, as well as the property behind it. That was a crane company. The Samuels Associates out of Boston is purchasing the property to do 700,000 square feet. It's actually 600,000 now of R&D and manufacturing in the biotech industry. And the planning board has been working with them regarding their sewer apportionment needs, and they're reaching back to the town to assist with the town in helping reduce infiltration and loss of water in the wastewater treatment system, which will greatly benefit the community, greatly benefit the town. So we're still working with them on their site plan design for drainage and other issues there. The next time that we will hear them is a week from today on the 9th at 6:30 over in the Forbes Municipal Building in the Great Hall, if you're interested. We will also open the public hearing on the 23rd of August for 180, 182 Turnpike Road to be a new Hyundai dealership. That's two properties. One is an office building at 182. The other is a smaller office building owned by Peter McCarthy at 180 Turnpike Road, right next to the CarMax facility. So if you're wondering where that property is, it's right next to CarMax heading west on the eastbound side of Route 9. The master plan implementation request for membership closes on August 15th. So if you're interested in serving on the master plan implementation committee, please go online, take a look at the request from the planning board, and submit a letter of interest before August 15th.
Okay,
That is
great.
my update.
Any questions for Jim? All right, then on to the Community Development Department report. Zach.
Great. For new businesses, as you all probably know and have tried, the Coop is open at 32 West Main Street. A business that I recently missed is Hall of Comics is opened at 122 Turnpike Road in June of 2022. They're like a comic book store. It's actually kind of cool. I went to go check them out a few days ago. Gerardo's European Bakery is reopened at 232 Turnpike Road in the same location. Upcoming businesses, in our case, Speedway Plaza. Ashley Furniture is still working on permitting. On Otis Street, work has started at 54 Otis Street. At 140 Computer Drive, Winthrop Wealth is moving into Suite 100. As Jim has already mentioned, 180, 182 Turnpike Road is being redeveloped into a Hyundai dealership. You can all see, too, they gave a presentation to the select board as part of the site plan process, and you can go watch that meeting if you want to learn more about the project. 1500 Union Street, which is the former Steinmart location. There's a seasonal Halloween retailer that's going to be moving into the space. And then at 1 South Street, which is the former Flirt Boutique, the law offices of Sarah J. Shamsuddin will be moving into that space. Regarding EDC programs and community development department work, Fred and I went around downtown on Wednesday, August 13th, to notify businesses about the outdoor dining and policy. We're expecting applications on that soon, and we will do any follow-up to make sure that those businesses that have chairs or seats in the sidewalk go through the policy. I worked on a cheat sheet for the policy to kind of summarize the requirements and the process for businesses. Online business directory is expected to go live by the end of this week. We're just wrapping up a few QA things. Ultimately, we got 166 businesses to sign up, in much because of the work of our ambassador, Pete Allen, as well as the EDC members who helped on that project. And then our final grant report for the Redo grant that funded that project through the 495 Metro West Partnership has been submitted as well. This week we're working on marketing materials for end users for the directory. So we had a bunch of marketing materials to get businesses to sign up. Now we want people to know that it exists and use it as a resource, and so we're working on that. a couple of weeks ago, myself, Christy, Jim, and Fred met to discuss the Economic Development Forum for the Select Board. We're working to put together an agenda for sometime in September or October. And that would be the meeting where we talk about our newly revamped ambassador program to educate people about that and try and bring in some new ambassadors as well. And then additionally, I'm working to move forward on the minority women-owned business study. We've received a draft proposal from one firm that can do the work with us, and so we're looking to continue to refine the proposal as well as find other quotes. Upcoming events on Thursday, August 4th, the Mass Econ is having a summer reception at 200 Station Drive in Westwood, Massachusetts. If you're interested in attending, please let me know, and I can easily register you, but please try to let me know today due to the close proximity of the event. On August 9th, the Metro West Chamber of Commerce is having their regional business barbecue and networking. And then on August 24th, the Quarter 945 Chamber of Commerce is having their summer networking barbecue. Would highly encourage anyone to attend those meetings to represent Westborough and the Westborough EDC. If you're interested, let me know, and I can register you for those events.
Zach, could you just go through them really quickly again?
On Thursday, 8/4, that's this Thursday, Mass Econ is having a summer reception from 4 to 6 p.m. in Westwood. On August 9th, the Metro West Regional Chamber of Commerce is having a business barbecue and networking session. And then on August 24th, the Quarter 9495 Chamber of Commerce is having their summer networking barbecue.
Thank you.
And that is all I have, Fred, unless you have anything else to add.
No, just very quickly, if I may. I'd like to personally thank Peter and Zach for meeting one of our goals for the LRP. The business director, I had the ability to get a sneak peek. It's awesome. He'll get you that link as soon as it's launched. And again, I'd like to thank them both. There was other people in the committee that put a lot of help into that too, but Peter especially.
Yeah, thank you both. I saw it yesterday. It's phenomenal. I think it's going to be really well received, and it looks great.
Yeah, we anticipated 50 to 100. We were hoping to get that. 166 is just outstanding for the participation on that.
Yeah. Any other business?
Only other business that I would mention is that our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 6th of September, which is, I believe, the day after Labor Day weekend. If I'm just curious to gauge attendance for that meeting. If so, I would be supportive of moving it to the following week. Although I know that Sandy, you have a standing Tuesday meeting at 8 a.m. Although we don't necessarily have to do 8 a.m. But I know that's a big travel week for people, so I wanted to check on that.
I will not be here. I'll be on vacation, so.
It's one.
What do people think?
For either.
I'm here.
Either works for me.
I'm not quite sure. Sorry.
That's okay.
Not in my calendar.
Maybe.
I do have vacation in that realm. I'm here.
All right. Want to leave it for the 6th?
Sounds like we can leave it.
Yeah. Okay. Great. If no other business, do I hear a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right. Alexander, yes.
Bagden, yes?
Zeph, yes?
Kearney, yes.
Robbins, yes.
Sorry, Williams, yes.
Leonardo, yes.
Keo, yes.
Really, yes.
Mark, you still there?
Mark.
Apparently he agrees.
He left early.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Meeting you.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.